Evolution of the Lost Boys. Peter Pan, 1953. In the first movie, the Lost Boys made their first appearance when Peter took Wendy, John, and Michael Darling to Neverland. The jealous Tinker Bell told them a Wendy bird had started a flight there and needed to be hunted down. This later led to conflicts between Peter, the Lost Boys, Wendy, John, and Michael. John and Michael want to join their wild brigade, and Peter appoints John as their temporary leader. They sing following the leader as they walk, but are soon captured by the Indians. While being carried to the Indian camp, they are shown annoyed. There, John takes the blame for getting themselves captured and the Lost Boys accept his apology. The chief explains that his tribe has fought the Lost Boys many times, and Cubby suggests that he should let them go. John is confused and slightly explains that they lose to each other after a side wins. The chief says he will not be releasing them and accuses them of kidnapping his daughter, Tiger Lily, but the Lost Boys tell him that they did not do so and had not seen her. The chief threatens them to be burned at the stake if she did not return by sunset. However, this punishment is prevented by Peter, who rescues her from Captain Hook, the real kidnapper, and the Lost Boys, John and Michael, are then set free. The Lost Boys also view Wendy as a mother-like figure, demanding she tells them stories. It eventually all came down to the final battle with Captain Hook, the children victorious in the end. The Lost Boys were sad to lose Wendy, but reluctantly allowed her, John, and Michael to return home under Peter's watchful eye. This Is Your Life, Donald Duck, 1960. The Lost Boys made cameo appearances at the end of the 148th episode of the Walt Disney Presents. Peter Pan, 1988. Peter Pan is an Australian 50-minute direct-to-video animated movie from Burbank Movies, Australia. It was originally released in 1988. The movie is based on J.M. Barrie's 1911 novel Peter and Wendy, adapted by Paul Leedon, which was in turn based on the 1904 play Peter Pan. The theme of Wendy serving as a substitute mother for the Lost Boys is played up heavily. At the end, the Lost Boys, plus Smee, are each returned to their own mothers, with Peter Pan's agreement. The soundtrack frequently returns to either a cheerful or tranquil flute motif as we watch the kids in action or at rest. Peter Pan and the Pirates, 1990. The Lost Boys live with Peter Pan together with the darling children Wendy, Michael, and John. They wear ragged clothes made from and shaped like various animals unique to each Lost Boy, each also wear an animal cap which they hardly ever take off. Unlike other versions, they can fly without the need for fairy dust and almost as well as Peter, plus feature biracial set of twins who are non-identical. Hook, 1991. In this Spielberg sequel, there were at least 24 Lost Boys of various ethnicities living in Neverland, whose clothes suggest that they left various civilizations at different times over the past century. They live in a giant tree on a tall rocky outcropping just offshore of the island. House of Mouse, 2001. In Chip and Dale, they are seen struggling to open a bag of peanuts until they are helped by Tinker Bell. In the episode, Donald Wants to Fly, they are part of a Neverland band and can be seen on stage singing along as Peter sings a version of You Can Fly, although Nibs is not present during this cameo. After the song, they all fly back to Neverland with Peter and Tinker Bell. Return to Neverland, 2002. In the sequel, Wendy has grown up and has a daughter of her own, Jane, a high-spirited girl who no longer believes in Wendy's stories of Neverland as her little brother, Danny, does, due to war pressure. Her opinion is forced to change, however, when Captain Hook kidnaps her. Thinking she's Wendy, she is rescued by Peter Pan and is taken to his hideout, Hangman's Tree. While the Lost Boys all excitedly crowd around her, Tootles reminds her of Danny and she runs off. Once she returns to Peter, it is then the Lost Boys' job to teach her how to have fun. They play a game of scavenger hunt, which ends with her being appointed their first lost girl. However, Tootles blows into the whistle that Captain Hook gave her, and this causes him and his crew to capture the Lost Boys and Peter. It all comes down to yet another final battle with him. The Lost Boys have finally unlocked Jane's inner child. Once she saves them and says that she must go home, they appear to be sad, as they begin to cry. However, she comforts them by saying that she will tell Danny their stories. Peter Pan, 2003. The Lost Boys are revealed to be children who fell out of prams when their nursemaids weren't looking and were taken to Neverland after not being claimed in 7 days. After the Darling siblings return home to 14 Darlington Street Road in London, they decide to stay with the Darling family to be taken in by them, with the exception being Slightly, who winds up being adopted by their aunt. The Lion King 1.5, 2004. The Lost Boys make a cameo appearance at the end, being called by Peter Pan to their theater seats, where they pile around him and shout. Robot Chicken, Season 8, 2006. In the episode, Taken to Neverland, Brian Mills goes to Neverland and rescues Darling's children from Peter Pan, Lost Boys, mermaids, and Captain Hook. Once Upon a Time, 2013. In ABC's Once Upon a Time, the Lost Boys, also known as the Lost Ones, are the murderous inhabitants of Neverland and servants of Peter Pan. He began forming them under his alias of the Pied Piper in the Enchanted Forest, in his quest to find the heart belonging to the truest believer. Because time is frozen in Neverland, they do not age, making them much older than their otherwise youthful outward appearance might suggest. As mentioned by Wendy, they cry at night because they miss their families. Captain Hook mentions to Emma Swan that while he was in Neverland, he spent time in the company of a group of orphans known as the Lost Boys. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, 2022. Only one of the Lost Boys, Cubby, makes a brief cameo in this movie, where he bumps into Sweet Pete and recognizes him as Peter Pan when the latter chases after Chip and Dale at a convention. Peter Pan and Wendy, 2023. The Lost Boys appear in the live-action remake, and are featured as a more diverse cast of children that includes girls and boys. Slightly is now a child with Down syndrome, Nibs is biracial, the twins are African American girls, Cubby, reverted back to curly, is a girl, and Tootles is African American. Additionally, 2 new Lost Boys are added. Birdie, who is a Chinese American girl, and Bellwether, who is a Latino boy.